So the Democrat Party is BLM, and BLM is the Democrat Party. They're the same thing. The Democrats are using it as camouflage, to get their way, to get their global control. It's not even a secret. We as conservatives, at this point, you have to actively, actively disagree, actively be against BLM. What are they going to do? Call you racist? They think you are anyways. So you just have to, shaking your head and keeping your head down and not speaking out about it. It's just going to get worse. They're never going to be satisfied. We, as a conservative group of people, we've all seen the map after the election of the red and blue areas, where it's like 90% of the country is shaded in red, and then the city centers are blue. There's a lot more people that think like us than we know. I would argue most people, and that, that map proves that. So we really can't be the silent majority anymore, or we're going to lose it all. You're going to lose the country. BLM likes to say or claim that their ancestors built this country as slaves and all that nonsense. If they're allowed to get away with preaching that jargon, we should be able to get away with saying, well, our ancestors conquered this land, fought wars to build a nation, which is America, what it is now. I have Irish ancestry, and during the Revolutionary War, and especially the Civil War, they were importing the Irish by the thousands to be mercenaries, to fight the wars for them. Lincoln did it. Robert E. Lee did it. So, if they're allowed to spew their nonsense about the 1619 Project and all that, and Trump tried to combat this with the 1776 Project, I think it was called. And of course, Biden did away with that on day one. But we have to actively oppose BLM at this point. They're not hiding the fact that they secured a conviction of Derek Chauvin on all those charges by being violent. They say it. Look at Maxine Waters. This woman is 80-something years old, 82, 83 years old, from California, travels all the way to Minnesota, and she's an 80-year-old woman on the ground at a protest, encouraging people to be more violent if they don't get their way. Don't these people, the Pelosi's and the Maxine Waters, and don't they want to retire? It's like politics is their life. It's their religion. It's their job. It's their hobby. It's power. It's money and power. I think they live basically the life of retirement 95% of the time, and then they come out of the shadows for a couple minutes and say, we need to do this, this, and this, and then they go back to their walled-off compounds or their beachfront properties and put their feet up, and watch the plebs of the world battle it out based on their words. So if the Democrat Party is going to use BLM, as camouflage to get their way, we need to actively oppose it. They're trying to steal this nation. They're trying to steal conservative values, traditional values. And if that weren't the case, if they were really interested in fixing issues, in black culture, they'd be focused on the black family. They'd be focused on the abortion rates not being sky high in the black community. Once you have a child, if you have common sense, if you have a caring bone in your body, once you have a child, your life changes. your focus changes, your direction changes. I was kind of a wayward child for a long time. But then I got married and had a kid, and my whole perspective on the world changed. I was laser focused on doing the right thing, providing and protecting my family. And that's most people. So maybe there shouldn't be so many Planned Parenthoods in these urban centers. Maybe we should encourage fathers to be in the home and have children with their wives and focus on creating a better community. Instead, they're worried about Trump or some Trump supporter who lives in a rural area and flies a Confederate flag because they think they hate him, and that redneck out in the woods that has nothing to do with these people in the urban centers is oppressing their opportunity when they're not even trying to do anything. So what do they think they're going to do with this abolish the police movement? I'll tell you exactly why the Democrats are behind this. They want to abolish local police and create a federal police force. It's naive, it's stupid to think that the most authoritarian political party that we've ever seen in this country, which is the current Democrat Party, is okay with not having a police force. Of course they want to have a police force. They want to have a police force controlled by Joe Biden, Kamala Harris, Barack Obama. No more local sheriffs to protect you from the federal government. No more local sheriff to say, yeah, we're not going and taking people's guns. So of course they're behind abolish the police. Abolish the NYPD. Abolish the Chicago Police Department. Abolish the LAPD. We'll just come in and hire them as federal police officers. Joe Biden is the new sheriff of all the police, and he can dictate what they do. But the BLM, they don't see that. They need to open their eyes. Abolish the police so Joe Biden can have his own police force. Sounds like a great idea. Joe Biden, who co-sponsored the 94 crime bill that put people away for decades for crack cocaine as opposed to powder cocaine. And a lot of leaders in the black community back then were on board with that, changing the punishments for crack cocaine as opposed to powder cocaine, because they wanted to get crack off the streets in the urban centers. It was much easier to distribute. It was much cheaper. So a lot of the black leaders were behind that 94 crime bill. But they want Joe Biden to be the sheriff of their communities now. It's unbelievable. So anyways, the point is, we can't hide in the shadows anymore. We can't be afraid of getting labeled racist. It's like we're walking through a field full of landmines every day when we try to talk. And that's not what this country was founded on. It was founded on free speech, not walking on, through a field of landmines when you want to speak your mind, get your point across, especially politically. So you have to actively oppose BLM. Just say screw them, screw BLM. You are the Democrats. We need to, when you're arguing with people on Facebook, we have no problem saying, oh, the Democrats, they suck. Screw them, blah, blah, blah. We need to treat BLM the same way, because the Democrats and BLM are the same thing. So, seeing Chauvin get convicted of all those counts, of course it's not shocking. The jury barely deliberated. I watched a lot of that trial. And of course the video of Chauvin on George Floyd's neck, or as it came out in the trial, it was some of the time on his neck, some of the time on his back. He was moving his leg around, but of course it looks terrible. But none of the medical experts could prove 100% exactly how he died. It couldn't prove that he died of strangulation, or he died of a drug overdose, or he died of, there was no, like, bruising around his neck or his back or whatever. So, bottom line is, nobody knows what killed George Floyd for the most part. None of the medical experts. They were all theorizing. And the jury gets in there and barely even deliberates, and they were terrified. These people were terrified. If they didn't convict him right away of everything that the state you wanted to convict him of, that their community was going to burn. And they were right. The whole country was on edge. Oh no, the mob's going to burn everything down. Trump should have been a lot harder on BLM. When those protests first started, as soon as that first brick was thrown, or a fire was started in the local, let's say Portland or Minneapolis or whatever, those local police departments weren't authorized to do something. Trump should have been there. As soon as that first brick was thrown, with the National Guard or the 101st Airborne or whatever, to put a stop to that shit. Because look what it's turned into. But he was walking on a political field full of landmines, bidding for re-election, and the media was demonizing every move he made. But, we allowed violent protests for an entire year. That's what convicted Chauvin. That and his actions. I mean, I'm not saying he did a great thing, but, in my view, I look at Derek Chauvin like this. A guy like George Floyd, a career criminal, a drug addict, has no problem robbing people at gunpoint, pregnant women. I'm not the biggest fan of the police either, because I think they overstep their bounds. I think they have a God complex. I think we've gotten away from, honoring the Constitution. But when I do want police, it's to keep people like George Floyd away from my wife and my kid. You know what I mean? Like, what if my wife and kid were in that store and George Floyd was on a sick one and decided to pull his gun out on my 6-year-old? I want cops to, whatever you got to do for that guy not to do that. And I understand that's not what George Floyd was doing that day, but that's what George Floyd is capable of. And poor Derek Chauvin, I shouldn't say poor Derek Chauvin, that doesn't come out the right way, but he gets called to a thing, he has no idea what's going on. He walks up, they see him struggling with this big ass dude who's high on drugs, and they're just trying to hold the guy down until the ambulance gets there. He wanted to get out of the car, so they should have just put him in the back of that car, shut the door, and taken him to jail. That way George Floyd, who knows if he would be dead, but they gotta do what they gotta do sometimes, man. And I don't know, it's a sticky case. I'm glad I wasn't on that jury. I'm not necessarily supporting Derek Chauvin or George Floyd in this situation. I think it was bad all the way around. I think George Floyd was a bad dude. His criminal record proves it. The things he's willing to do. Anybody who's willing to rob at gunpoint, anyone really, but especially a pregnant woman, and stick a gun to her stomach, like, you lose a lot of, in the real world, people don't like you. You're a terror. You're a terror to society doing things like that. And we need cops to get rid of those people so we can live a prosperous and happy life and not be under the threat of violence. And I see BLM just for the most part like I see George Floyd. They've proven that they're violent, that they don't like white people. Their objective is to get rid of police. So they, why do they want to get rid of police? So they can commit crimes. You know what I mean? So I see BLM and I see George Floyd. They're the same thing. And the Democrat Party has adopted those two things. George Floyd is their new savior. He's their new saint. So we have to actively oppose it. Like I said in the earlier, they think you're a racist anyways. There's nothing you can say to convince them that you're not a racist. So you may as well say, yeah, screw BLM. That doesn't make you a racist, or it doesn't make you more or less a racist in their opinion. So we have to actively oppose this if there's any hope of getting back to some normalcy and some traditional values in this country. Before you know it, it'll be what already is, but they're using liberalism to get to authoritarianism. We will be a communist nation under the guise of liberalism to get there. That's what they want. Barack Obama wants to be the king of the United States. And he is right now. He's pulling the strings up in Martha's Vineyard. So, oppose BLM, oppose the Democrat Party. They're one and the same. We got to stop being silent. Just have your voice heard. Don't worry about people calling you a racist or a bigot or a Nazi. We're not Nazis. We're not bigots. We're not racists. We're normal people that don't want a group of violent thugs intimidating us. So we're not going to let it happen.